Hello, hello, and welcome to the Show Show. It's pretty simple. We're three friends who love TV shows. We pick a show to watch every month, and we get together here to talk about it. In this episode, we will be discussing the 2019 first season of the Netflix original dark fantasy series based on the book series by Andrei Sapkowski. You don't want to keep a man with bread in his pants waiting. Today on the Show Show, The Witcher. I want to welcome you inside the broadcast booth. I'm Jay. I'm joined today by two Hall of Famers, Aaron and Tony. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having us again.
You can check out our social media for news about the show, including our currently postponed 2022 tour and cruise, along with plenty of bonus content. You can find that on Twitter at the Show Show Pod. You can email us your questions at the Show Show TV Podcast at gmail.com. You can check out our YouTube channel if you're not there already. That's on YouTube as Mandamus Radio. You can find me individually on several platforms at JSuesponte. Where can we find you, Aaron?
You can find me on Twitter at Tenacious Aaron. I sometimes go on there and post things. You might be able to talk to me.
How about you, Tony?
You can find me on Instagram at tpinquite.
All right, for those of you on the live stream, we may take calls later in the show. So if there's time, get those calls lined up. You can call in at 888-787-1310. The number again is 888-787-1310. Quick impromptu note right now. It is currently December 2021, and we are closing in on year 3 of the pandemic. Two of your hosts here might have COVID right now. So we just, I don't want to speak for anybody else here, but I think I can when I say, if you haven't been vaccinated, think about it. It's going to protect you. It's going to protect everybody around you. So that's me off my soapbox for the moment. But
I'd like to take a quick sidebar though, just because you blurted out a number, and I learned some Christmas trivia over the break. The Santa Claus movie. The one with Tim Allen.
Tim Allen?
Yeah, apparently Disney had to remove from all the digital and future versions of the Santa Claus the scene where Tim Allen just handed, I guess, his ex-wife's new boyfriend's phone number, and he looks at the card and he says, 1-800-SPANK-ME. I know that number, because a kid up in Seattle called the number and racked up like a $600 bill, and Disney had to pay it. So be careful the numbers you post out there into the world.
Oh, wow. That's pretty funny.
That's a wonderful topical holiday trivia tidbit.
Yeah. Again, it's the season and knowledge keeps getting thrown at me. So I am a sponge. I pick up all that crap.
Well, to our fans out there, one of the most common questions and comments we get from you is you want to know more about the TV shows that we watch, apart from what is chosen for us by the sacred wheel of randomonium. And we are going to start the show with a little different bit this time. We're gonna start an unofficial scoreboard where if we're watching something else that isn't necessarily tied to the show, we can throw a rating up onto that. And I will I'll lead by example here. And I would like to offer up two different shows onto our unofficial scoreboard. First, I've been watching the 3rd season of Succession, which just finished a few weeks ago. Fantastic. It's, I'd really encourage the two of you guys to keep on with it. I know you didn't really like it when we watched it for the show, but it just keeps getting better and better. So 4 stars for Succession Season 3. Another show I'm really excited about is Foundation on Apple TV Plus. Based on the Isaac Asimov series of novels. I didn't really have any expectations going in, but blew me away. Absolutely fantastic. So those are my unofficial scoreboard offerings for today. Tony, what do you have for the unofficial scoreboard?
Unofficial, I don't have any TV shows. I'll do some ratings to spare some people. If you are fans of the original Matrix and/or the original Matrix trilogy, at least for me, do yourself a favor, skip the new one on HBO Max or theaters. If it was a 10, I'd give it a 4 maybe. It just, for me personally, was horrible.
I heard it was the anti-Matrix.
It was, but just spoiler alert for me, it felt like there's like a lot of meta stuff in there, but it feels like kind of like an FU to the studio for making them make the movie. Like they made it bad on purpose, which I hope is true. Because
Oh wow.
if they made it bad on accident, then I don't know. It just wasn't for me.
I mean,
Not that it was it's not a horrible, like, garbage looking movie and just like horrible. It's just like a bad Matrix movie.
let me ask you this, Tony. Like, over the past decade, Adam Sandler has employed what I would call the grown-ups method of movie making, where you just get a bunch of your friends together, go on location, spend your vacation filming a couple of scenes, write it off as a movie, and publish it to Netflix. And everyone doesn't understand why you keep doing this, other than you must be making money. Like, is this that? Like, is this like we're now moving into where, like, it's not just the comedians who are doing it, like the Wachowski brothers, Keanu, all of them are just like, yeah, just pump the garbage out. We need to make some paychecks.
I think this will turn off for spoilers for the Matrix for like 30 seconds. There is literally a line. It's kind of made about the old Matrix, but they're saying Warner Brothers they're referencing something else, but they're saying Warner Brothers, our parent studio, is going to make this sequel with or without us, so it might as well be with us. That's like an actual line in the movie. That's what I felt the whole movie was. Like, it was like a made-up version.
We can't stop this, so we might as well be part of it.
Yeah, like they're either going to make it and they'll make it bad without them, or they probably got offered up saying, hey, you can make this, but we're going to make it either way, is what I think happened. I don't know if that did happen or not, but on the flip side, I finally got around to watching Inside, the comedy special by Bo Burnham, and that I would give like a 9 out of 10. I thought that was amazingly well done. So I think it's only like an hour and a half. So I'd say give that a watch if you guys have free time and are feeling the pandemic a little bit.
Very cool. Well, I have a couple of offerings for the unofficial scoreboard. Number one, and this is one that I've come to a couple of times. I used to like put on Futurama in the background, just let it run, like just because it was a great, kind of sitcom-y cartoon to watch. The new installment, Disenchantment, by the creators of The Simpsons and Futurama, is phenomenal. It's on Netflix. It's essentially as Futurama was kind of like the sci-fi Simpsons, this is kind of like the fantasy or Game of Thrones Simpsons. And fantastic job, great animation, great social commentary all across the board. But it's got Abby Jacobson, which is one of the girls from Broad City, and she's really good. It's got Eric Andre, and then I can't remember the third guy's name, Nat Faxon. He was in Beer Fest. It's one of the Germans. Jay, so that's where you'll recognize him. He is phenomenal in it. He's so funny. It's high recommend. There's 3 seasons. Me and Chrissy are in the 3rd season, and I've just enjoyed it all across the board. It's a little kind of like, on the nose sometimes, but I mean, what isn't these days? And also, this is a honorable mention shout out on the unofficial board, because it's not really a TV show, but it is a series with a season. I am 4 episodes away from finishing the 1st season of I Hate Your Deck on YouTube, which is a Magic the Gathering Commander like video series. And it's really interesting. They had like Post Malone on multiple episodes, and they were like playing Magic the Gathering at Post Malone's house, which was really interesting to see him kind of in a very different light, because I don't even listen to his music, but with all the tattoos on him, I guess I would have got a very different persona than he actually has. So if you're interested in watching just like people play card games on the internet, I Hate Your Deck is a lot of fun.
It's kind of funny to hear you say that about Post Malone, because it feels like I myself and plenty of other people I know have had that exact same kind of interaction where you expect him to be one thing and then he's something completely different.
Completely different. Like he busted into the Magic the Gathering community like over the last year, has partnered with Wizards of the Coast, and they're actually working on some like Post Malone exclusive Secret Lair drops for next year. So Hasbro has turned Magic the Gathering into a cash cow, like doing crossovers with like The Walking Dead, with Stranger Things. They've got apparently like I think a Lord of the Rings whole like set of cards coming out next year. So the crossover stuff that they're doing is really, really interesting. So it's really controversial in the community because people are like, I don't know how much I want like Fortnite in my Magic the Gathering, but at the same time, it's a game for all ages. So if it brings more people into the game, I think it's a good thing. So, anyways, that's my kind of unofficial things. Two recommendations to check out.
Now, Aaron, I apologize if I missed it, but did you want to give a rating to either one?
I mean, I would honestly give Disenchantment like a 8 out of 10. Like I thoroughly have enjoyed it. It's been interesting. It's enthralling. The story gets better and better. So I would highly recommend that one. And honestly, I hate your deck. Like it gets back to what people are interested in. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. I've enjoyed it. It is a lot of awkward nerd cringe. So like, you know, you have to kind of grind through some of that. But I like watching people play high like powered Magic games and really crazy stuff. So it's a lot of fun to see that kind of stuff play out.
Well, I think if the fans of the show are accustomed to anything, it's nerd cringe.
That is true.
Well, speaking of which, you guys want to get into The Witcher?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a good segue if we're talking about celebrities that are into some nerdy culture. I think, according to the internet, Henry Cavill's a pretty avid video gamer, and I think he is pretty
Warhammer, dude.
I think he's pretty well versed in the world of The Witcher also, which is fitting since he is the star. And do a broad summary, we can get into the details.
Wait, hold on. You're telling me that Henry Cavill plays Warhammer?
Yeah, he plays Warhammer a lot. Like he got mega into it over the pandemic. I actually watched an interview with him on Graham Norton, and I think Tom Holland was there. And Graham Norton was like, "So I hear you're into World of Warcraft," and he was like, "No, I'm not into World of Warcraft. I'm into Warhammer. Let's go ahead and set the record straight." So it was enough of a thing to where he was like correcting the host, being like, "No. I play a very specific part of nerddom."
Wow. Well, I'll admit I have some experience with Warhammer myself, but I played like the tabletop game.
Yep. That's exactly what he plays.
Whoa,
builds the models, paints them, does the measurements, fights the armies, all of it.
Holy shit! Do you happen to know if he does like the 40,000 or the classic?
I think he does classic. I think from what I heard, he didn't say Warhammer 40K. I know that a bunch of the streamers I watch play 40K.
Right.
And also because of the pandemic, a lot of people have started playing Warhammer on Tabletop Simulator because it's free. You just basically install the add-ons and the pieces and you just start playing. So it's a way that you can learn how to play the game, get into it without actually having to dump lots of money and time into painting miniatures.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, sorry to sidetrack you there, but that's about the last thing I would expect out of Henry Cavill. That's great.
And he's good looking too. Damn it, universe. First, damn you, Omicron, for delaying our cruise for the show, but okay, I digress. Back to a broad summary of The Witcher. I don't know how far we're into the pod before we get to the talk of it, but as Jay mentioned, it is a kind of a dark fantasy world. It's basically swords, magic. There's some trebuchet, siege fighting going on, but we really follow the main character, Geralt of Rivia, who is the Witcher. That we've already described what they are. They're mutated humans that were just basically created to fight monsters. There's really kind of three storylines we follow, mainly Geralt's kind of through history, and also another major plot point is the story of Yennefer, who is a sorceress. We kind of follow her journey from just like a loser to maybe the strongest or one of the strongest sorcerers that we've seen on the show so far. And then also the third storyline is kind of a tale of this country of Sintra, but really Cirilla, who is a princess, and also we find out later connected to Geralt through destiny. So we kind of follow these three characters. Ciri and Geralt, the show's working towards bringing them together, so they don't really interact, but we do see Geralt and Yennefer kind of intertwine at different points in the story as we follow their adventures. But that's just kind of a broad summary of what the show's about. And we can go into more detail
I do think that
right.
I do think that right off the bat, we do need to address what I think is my main criticism of the show, which is the like completely unannounced, unknown, not referenced, not cited timeline aspects of the show. Because in the first season, the first episode, I think, yeah, the difference is everything that's happening to Geralt in the first episode is 1231. Everything that's happening to Ciri is in 1263, and everything that's happening to Yennefer, I believe, is in like 1205 or 12 something like that, real close to the beginning. So yeah, 1206 Yennefer. So number one, that aspect of the show threw me for a loop. Like I was really confused watching the first episode or first two episodes really, and that's whenever we started looking at Wikipedia and recognizing, oh, these are all happening in different times.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually helped me synthesize and understand the story a little bit better.
Yeah, it was. I had seen it before I rewatched it for the pod, and it was a lot better. Really, just knowing characters' names because they kind of do actually reference it. They reference characters that you've met, and they reference them as children or things that you know for the previous episode have happened in the past or the future or something. So like it kind of says it, but when you haven't seen the show, and I haven't read the books really or anything, so it really is. They kind of pull a little Westworld on it without the mystery part of it.
Well, I didn't feel like there was really a payout like there was in Westworld, right? Like at a certain point, you kind of recognize you're all moving towards a common timeline because, like, you know, Yennefer and him meet up, so their timelines meet. So you're like, oh, okay, so that kind of makes some more sense here. Because, like, yeah, you're right. There'd be things like where Yennefer would be like, oh, I've spent the last 3 decades in the court. Oh, it was so bothersome. And it's like, oh, okay, so yeah, 3 decades have passed since the last episode. Casually, that makes sense. So that was the only thing that like really bothered me. That and some of the, in my opinion, After Effects level CG when they would slice some throats and like a mist of red blood would splurt up, and I was like, "Come on, guys, you can't try and act like you're going to be the next Game of Thrones and do shit like that."
Yeah, it feels like.
Go ahead, yeah, Jay. Sorry.
With the different timelines, there's a lot of different ways that you can signal that visually without even dialogue, and it feels like they just didn't do it. They didn't take the time to create that visual language to help us better understand which timeline we were in, and that was really frustrating as a viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like they were hiding it, but not on purpose. Is basically what it felt like.
I will say one thing. I have watched into season 2, and there is a joke in season 2 where someone's harassing the bard, which we haven't talked about yet, and he says something about like, oh yeah, that one song kind of sucked because I couldn't tell what timelines people were in, and
it was like
I was like, that's
before I realized it was different time.
Yeah. I thought that was a great kind of like, okay, mea culpa, we recognize we kind of, you know, maybe flubbed the bar on that one.
I will say I did watch season 2 also, which we don't talk about, but
I'm halfway through.
Maybe not the CG, but the prosthetics, like the special effects, I feel like took a big jump up. Like,
big jump. Quality, filming, cinematography.
Yeah.
That was my other thing with season 1, and I will say I really enjoyed season 1, but there were times where like it's like, oh man, this is like HBO Lord of the Rings level animation. Like the Siege of Sodden, whenever like the mage was using like the barrier on the door and the arrows were like, or maybe that was Sintra. That was actually at Sintra. Whenever what's his name? Mousesack was doing the shield on the door and the arrows were flying at it. That looked amazing. Like that just looked phenomenal. And then there was other parts where I just was like, Goat Man, you look horrible. You don't even look like a real thing.
Yeah, I did like the was it a Striga? It's like the aborted baby, not aborted baby, the baby that died inside.
The cursed baby, yeah, the Striga looked amazing.
Thing was freaky looking. I was like, oh my god, this is scary. I thought that was really well done. But yeah, season 2 definitely I feel like lifts their special effects up. Maybe they just got a bigger budget. once they realized that season 1 was a success or something.
No, I think that's true. I'm curious though, because this is pretty dark and pretty violent. Our resident anti-gore fan over here. I'm curious your thoughts on this.
Yeah, this show was too far for me in those respects. I personally am somebody who I do not like horror, just full stop, period. And I also recognize that I define horror a lot more broadly than most people do, which basically for me it's anything that's gross or anything that's scary. And there was plenty of scary and plenty of gross in this show, and honestly, it made me disengage with it at plenty of points where it got too violent, it got too gross, there was too much blood. It felt like you only went about 20 minutes at a time on average without seeing somebody get their head cut off in a really gross way. So there's quite a lot that I missed in this show just because I got grossed out, and a few times I physically had to turn away.
Well, I apologize then.
Oh no, don't I don't want you to take any of my comments about this show personally about yourself, because we're not talking about you, Tony. We're talking about this show. And there's different tastes out there. You guys are gonna like things that I don't like. I'm gonna like things you don't like. We're gonna
no, for sure. For sure.
In the Venn diagram of shows, I think the three of us have a lot of overlap, and I think this might be one of those areas where we got Tony and Aaron, but we just don't have Jay.
So I am curious, Jay, on this front, like from a character or story development, did any of the characters interest you at all? Did any of their stories, or did it just that because of the level of gore or monsters that was in it, it just kind of like it really shut down the whole show?
I tried. I gave it the good old college try, but I struggled to care about anybody. I remember in the pilot episode, the little girl that he interacts with, I remember thinking, oh, she's got some spunk. Maybe we're going somewhere with her. Never saw her again. Yennefer, I was really turned off by Yennefer by the whole transformation thing, because we start with her as this kind of comically disfigured hunchback with a Lord Farquaad haircut, and within 3 episodes she's hot. And they had to make sure that we saw her naked on both sides of that, so we don't feel weird about seeing her naked when she's only hot. But the whole like she's all that scene of having her debut at the prom, where it just terrible. Hated that. What did you guys think about that sequence?
It didn't strike me particularly. I also Yennefer's story was probably my least favorite. Like Geralt's really interesting. Yennefer it's interesting in the sense of like taking someone who is the bottom of our society, and then she's one of the most powerful beings in the world. That kind of stuff is interesting, and what they do with it. But I felt like it did kind of fall into weird kind of gender tropes at the end. It's like, I want a baby. Like that's what it really felt like to some extent. Yep. And maybe that's because this is all based off Polish folklore and older stories, but it just felt a little dated to some extent.
Maybe that's better in the books, but yeah, there wasn't any kind of you never felt like why she wanted a baby. It just felt like she wanted it because she couldn't have it anymore.
Yeah,
they felt like a strong pull for like she was a loving person, or she loved children, or like people, or anything. It's just like, you know what? I didn't think about what I gave up, and I can't have it, so now I want it. It's kind of how the show portrayed it. Now, hopefully, it's more subtle and built up better in the source material. But yeah, I think that's probably one of the problems with it.
Yeah, give me something. Give me, she was rejected and sold by her own family, so she wants to create a new one.
That's good.
Give me something, but the way that they portrayed it it didn't work. And there's basically two storylines that will make me power down quicker than any others. One of them is, oh, I want to have a baby but can't. I just, I understand there's a lot of people in
To be
that.
fair, though, Jay, that's kind of been one of the major human stories since like the dawn of written like stories.
No, true. I understand that's a plot line that resonates with a lot of people because there's a lot of people struggling with that. And well, I just, it's not something that resonates with me. The other one is the love triangle. Once you start down that road of that love triangle, man, I am out so quick.
Where's the love triangle? I'm curious.
In this show, that is one praise I do have for it, which is that we did not get a love triangle. I did a little bit to research into the source material, and apparently in the source material, there's actually, and specifically, I mean the game actually, there's much more of a love triangle between Geralt, Yennefer, and then was it Tissia?
Triss Marigold.
Was it the
other
boss or was
wizard?
it the other mage?
It was like the boss sorceress at the school.
So that's Tressa, right?
That's
Or Tessa.
Tissaia.
Tissaia, yeah.
Tissaia. There we go.
Triss
Yeah.
is the one at Foltest Kingdom that's kind of like a healing kind of plant mage girl. I think that's where the Geralt love thing is. It's like Triss and Yennefer and Geralt.
Oh, well, and also Yennefer and what's his name? Istrid?
Yeah, something like Istrid, yeah.
That's kind of a pseudo love triangle there.
So I will compliment this show in avoiding the easy tropey love triangle because that I would have been much more pissed off about that. But that kind of leads me into something else I wanted to bring up with you guys was we had mentioned a little bit about that you guys might have played the games a little bit. Did any insights on the comparison between the show and the games?
Unfortunately, I did not have enough time to
I
get into the game.
I started the third game, but that's probably a bad place to start with the third one. But I didn't get very far into it yet.
Well, I was curious to find out whether this show was based on the game, based on the books. Are they all following the same story?
I do know a little bit about this because I did talk to a buddy of mine who played the games and watched the show and read the book, and he was like, "There's a lot of overlap, right? Like, apparently, the show is based off of two stories: The Last Wish and Sword of Destiny, I believe. The game, I think, is a little bit more, like, even more in depth. Like, it covers more of the stories. I think there's 9 stories that make up the Witcher kind of saga. So I know that there's also now a miniseries like animation cartoon on Netflix that talks a little bit about like the origins of The Witcher. I don't think that that's based off any source material, but my understanding is that the games do this material should be covered in at least one of the older games, like maybe 1 or 2. Now that 1 is really old, like it came out a long time ago.
Yeah, even the third game is decently old by now, like at least 5+ years since the third game.
Yeah, 2007 was when the first Witcher came out.
Video game?
Yes, the video game.
My friend, I think, has read the books, and he says there's a lot of things that are, well, maybe just season 2, because that's the latest thing we've been talking about. A lot of things are kind of out of order, or they've changed some things pretty strongly from the books. Maybe that's just switching it to a visual medium, trying to keep it condensed thing. But I think at least season 2 starts to kind of vary from the books a little bit.
Yeah,
I think we all can agree
Sorry.
that Henry Cavill's badass. Geralt.
Yeah, no, I have to say Henry Cavill did great, and I also think that the guy who played the Bard, Yesker, was phenomenal. Like his performance through the entire series, I thought was great.
And he is a good singer too.
Yeah, that was the other thing. He actually was a good singer. Like the songs were enjoyable to listen to.
The episode you're talking about in season 2, where it kind of that meta joke about the problems of season 1, like the song in that episode is a banger, man. I freaking listened to that online afterward.
That's
It's
awesome. Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. The Butcher Burn song.
Yeah, I was like, dang, this thing is hitting hard. So is Tazakorn Your Witcher from the first season. I was like,
Yeah, no, I mean, I sing that to Christy all the time. Like, I was just like, we like wandering around the house, and I was like, singing the chorus to her. What were your thoughts on the Bard, Jay? Like, was the comic relief even helpful at all?
It helped. It was a little too on the nose, to borrow a phrase from Aaron earlier. That it was almost like, oh, hey, now it's time for the relief. Da, 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 da. But
Do you know? Apparently, one thing real fast. Sorry, his name is Dandelion in Polish, and that's what he is in the games. But I guess that's like the word is like Jaskier in Polish, and so I guess to make him not be called Dandelion in the show, they just went with the original Polish term.
Huh. Okay. Well, at least I think I can understand why they cast the person that they did, for just like you guys were talking about. He's got a great voice, and if he's going to play a bard, he's going to have to sing, obviously. But at least for the non-singing parts, I kept wishing that they had cast Jack Whitehall instead.
Oh God, that would have been so good.
Yeah, I just kept kind of like how when we watched Succession, I just couldn't get Parks and Recreation Adam Scott out of my mind as Kendall. I couldn't get Jack Whitehall out of my head as the Bard. But the music, I think, it's an example of how this show is unimmersive. That the world building that they tried to do didn't work for me. And the way that the music did that was that it was too modern. I kind of wanted, from a fantasy series, to have the music be a little more medieval and folksy, and instead it went a little more in the pop direction.
They're definitely more like ballads, not like old school bardic tales.
Like kind of in the toss a coin to the Witcher, it was like, you valley of plenty, and it's just like, man, I don't really want that on a lute.
Well, I can see that. I personally enjoyed it, but I also like stuff like, the modern jukebox, or like whenever they would have the stuff in Westworld that was modern music but done in like the 1800s, or done with the player piano. So yeah. I kind of like that kind of stuff. I will agree that season 1 had some immersion breaking stuff, but I felt like it was more of the set at times that either they would try and make it look really filthy, but then you would see like super like nice, like freshly built structures, and it just didn't. There were just times that, and I think Chrissy had said this multiple times to me. She's like, it feels like I'm watching a little bit of a set play at times, because it feels unimmersive. Chrissy loved the Bard, so I don't know if she would agree on that one, but definitely some of the sequences, it didn't feel real. It felt very fake. But there were other times that it felt very, very good. Like, it felt like they nailed it. Like, I felt like the scene in Sintra, like with the Law of Surprise, like that whole sequence, I thought was really, really interesting and cool and weird. I wish they would have explained the Law of Surprise a little bit better, because they kind of acted like it was like, oh yeah, the Law of Surprise, everyone knows what this is, so we're good to really jump into this one.
Yeah, to go back to the point you made about the sets, it felt like they used the same sets or the same backlot as Miracle Workers. And
yeah, yeah, that's true.
Our big complaint about Miracle Workers was that it was, it very much felt like a TBS show, and sometimes the Witcher felt the same. And with the Law Surprise, yeah, I'm 100% on board with you there. And isn't that just kind of a stupid like law? Like, hey, you'll be able to ask for anything at any moment, and I have to give it to you because you saved my family member's life.
Well, no, it's not anything. It's something that I have now that I don't know that I have.
Yeah,
that's like in the show. It could be like a random puppy or just some sort of surprise that, I don't know. Like, the show does say it's like a super old tradition in whatever this world is. That's like, people claim it like the majority of the time when they save someone's life is what kind of I got from it.
No, I agree. There was some context to try and explain it later, but it really felt like it was like there was a good like monologue before we actually had any explanation as to what the Law of Surprise was. Um, I will also say, like, I'm a little confused about, I guess, Siri, just in general. Like, I feel like her story is a little confusing in the first season, and maybe it's just because it's fragmented at times. But I feel like they could have. I feel like the fall of Sintra that they showed, like, at the very, like, beginning, like, should have been done later, because I didn't care about anyone, Calanthe, Sintra, or anything at the beginning of the show. Right? I felt like, and I know that they were trying to get, Siri moving, but it felt like I kind of was like, man, this feels like something I should care about, or this should matter to me, but it just doesn't. So I again, a lot of these things kind of get solved with season 2 because there's been a lot more progression in the story. But this is where I feel like, story wise, I almost feel like they don't know what they have, and they don't know how to tell the story when they start filming. And as the show goes on, they kind of shore up a bit. They kind of get the story kind of on the right track and narrowed, and then finally hit a stride in the last few episodes. But I do feel like that it's a bit chaotic at the beginning.
Yes, 100% agree about that opening fall of Sintra, because it took me so long to figure out that Nilfgaard was supposed to be the bad guys. And like at the beginning, I'm like, okay, should I be scared of these guys? Are they evil? Like, are they going to rape and pillage? Like,
They're slaughtering everyone in that opening sequence.
Once they got to that down to the slaughtering, I understood why I should be afraid of this invading army. But like, are they an evil empire? Like, what's the I wanted to know more, and it just never gave me any.
Well, and also, like, the white flame of Nilfgaard, that has been referenced in dialogue, but we've not really. I don't understand it. Like, they're like, oh, there's been a usurper. There's also something called the white flame. I'm not sure if the usurper and the white flame are the same person, or if the white flame is the deity that the usurper worships. But this kind of just nomenclature dialogue is being thrown around pretty willy nilly. By Fringilla and by the mages and stuff like that. So, and again, maybe that gets back to what Tony was saying at the beginning, is that having a better understanding of names when you're starting at the beginning of the story may help you follow the story a lot easier as you go through.
And a quality script does a good job of teaching you and reinforcing you with those names. And I feel like this one didn't. Maybe I'll skip ahead to my conclusion here, but I think that there's an interesting world to be explored here, but I think this television show fails to do that well.
I think it stumbles.
That might be true. I did enjoy the show, but yeah, there's definitely problems like y'all are pointing out.
Like, no, I thoroughly enjoyed the show, Tony. But, like, it's one of those things where, like, the whole time I'm watching it, I'm like writing down, this is something they could have done better. I'm so fucking confused by this. Oh my gosh, this is interesting. It gets back to this thing. Like, I feel like walking out of the show, I was excited for season 2. So for that purpose, that I feel like they hit that at the end, and they've hooked me on the story. I want to know more. But the journey to get here, you're gonna lose people, not just because of, like, if you don't like gore, horror, or anything like that, but you're gonna lose people like my father-in-law, who we were asking him what his thoughts on The Witcher is. He's like, I'm just really confused by it. He's not gonna go and read the Wikipedia to help give him some context of what's going on. He's just gonna stay confused, and then each episode's not going to clear up that confusion. And I think that that's where this story drops the ball for the viewer, is that it does have an interesting world. It does have something other than fucking vampires and werewolves as the only fucking thing to tell a story about, and have given us a new, interesting creation with this Witcher. I feel like they just kind of have yet to give us the story that is worthy of it being a part of pop culture.
I did read something, like a comment online, and I think that would have helped. They said this show should have had, like, shown some maps at some point.
Yes.
I was like, yeah, that would definitely help, because you don't really know, like, how far away am I when I'm here versus somewhere else, and, like, that Nilfgaard's trying to take the north or something. And yeah, to your point, you never really know. Like you say, you don't know if they're the bad guy. I think that's kind of the show does a decent version of saying we still don't really know if they're the bad guy. we know that they're taking over everything, but they're also like kind of, who is that Istrid guy? Her old Yennefer's old boyfriend's kind of like, well, they feed the people,
They're taking care of the
they
poor.
they give them resources and stuff like that. So it's like we still don't really know. Are they just like savage murderers trying to conquer, or are they trying to like kind of like take over so they can unite all these separate countries underneath like one banner? But yeah, they needed a map, like, or maybe I did like the intros to the show where it's just like the theme and it shows kind of like a metal sculpture of maybe like
What's going to happen?
it's not Game of Thrones, it's like a house, but it's like kind of like a symbol of what is connected to that episode. But maybe it would have been better served by a different kind of intro where it had a map and it showed things moving, people moving, or just like locations kind of sweeping by or something.
Like, I understand it's difficult to do that, especially in the intro, without it being compared to Game of Thrones. But when you're making a dark fantasy series that comes out the year Game of Thrones finishes, that's unavoidable. And
well, I mean, I'm sorry, this is just where I don't understand why you don't have, like, there's been so many shows, movies, stories, whatever, that started off with a short little narration, a map, an explanation, a setting of the universe, and then go. Yeah. Like, honestly, they could have benefited from even something as simple as that. Just a short little, like, you could have had fucking like Vesemir, and I know that that's the season 2, but you could have had like a Witcher, like a non-Geralt rich Witcher kind of explaining the universe, or Witchers, or any of that stuff to kind of lay the foundation. And I feel like that would have been a little bit better. I also feel like if they just told the story chronologically, that also would have been better.
Yeah, they could have even had a Star Wars intro.
Yeah, like even a Star Wars type intro. Just a little bit. Yeah, Nilfgaard is attacking the north.
Now on the northern front, they face Sintra, the last holdout of the south. Or something, I don't know. Yeah, they don't do a good job. They reference it in like the Council of Wizards. I don't know what that's called, but like
the Brotherhood, like, and
they're like, they're gonna conquer this. There'll be kind of some consequences. We gotta stop it from happening. Or
Aretuza.
Yeah, it does hurt a little bit that the names are kind of like, I like that they're fantastical, but it is hard to follow. You're like, okay, who is this character? Strigobor, he's that dude from the beginning. Why do all the wizards, when they have a little place they have of their own, they just put a whole bunch of naked people having an orgy around them?
I'm just convinced it's like the ancient mage, like, home security system. Somebody's trying to sneak in and get you, they immediately get enchanted into joining your orgy, and they're just stuck there permanently.
If they're not fucking, they're a threat. It's like,
yeah, that's exactly right. Hey, you're not having sex. It's an intruder.
You're not eating a grape out of a belly button. What are you doing here? I think that may be a little bit of it's hard. It's not the same style of show as Game of Thrones, but it's hard not to do callbacks just because that's the main reference for a similar-ish show. It's just like
it's the biggest fantasy show we've had in the last decade, right?
Yeah, it kind of felt like that's what, that's like season 1 Game of Thrones, just like throw some naked people in here so they'll keep watching it. And then as the other seasons of Game of Thrones went on, there was less and less, like the main characters stopped showing their boobs, and there was less like gratuitous, like, it's good for this. If it's good for the story, that's fine, but just like a random Game of Thrones blowjob in the background while someone's having a conversation, like, that's not adding anything. So maybe that's all it was for this season 1. It was just
well, and I read actually the I think the director said that they significantly dropped the nudity in season 2. So I think that you're right, Tony, that this was kind of like the Netflix, hey, throw more boobs in there. Mm-hmm. More boobs. Yeah, 2 orgies. We're gonna have two orgies. They didn't even have 2 orgies in the first season of Game of Thrones, all right?
Once you take a number, I want you to double it.
Yeah, there were definitely times where it felt like this show was, it's like the writer sat in a room and made a word cloud of, they're like, what do people like about Game of Thrones? We got violence, we got boobs, we got dragons. And then they were like, let's do a show with that. And then they just didn't really spend the time to create a new world. They were just like, all right, more boobs, more killing. That's what's important.
The thing that makes this world unique is stuff like the conjunction, the types of monsters, the fact that humans, elves, all came from a different plane of existence and there was some type of merger. Like, I feel like that stuff is more interesting than anything else, any of the social commentary, any of the other parts of the story. I want to know more about that stuff. That's the stuff that's interesting.
Yeah, I do like the gore more than Jay. I thought like the story, especially on the second watch, like that first when Geralt becomes the quote unquote butcher of Blaviken, whatever, like that is some of the best looking, I don't know if it's the most accurate, but the best looking like swordplay I've seen in a show in a while. And yeah, maybe the blood mist clouds were a little bit
No.
off. It was pretty sweet.
You're absolutely right. The choreography of the show, I think, is very good. I was just bitching about, like, you remember when After Effects first came out, and they're like every single TV show that like had any blood, they would have After Effects blood, and it just looked bad. And I was like, come on, Witcher, why are you doing that? There just was a few moments where I remember saying, like, blurting that out. But I also feel like that could have been of, hey, we blew all of our budget on these scenes, but we still had to film all this other stuff. We've got this great choreographed, sword fight. Just throw some After Effects blood out there. Good, we're good. All right, we're good. It'll fit. And again, that may be just kind of like, I read all these like stories about like how movies are made, and like whenever they run out of money, what do they do to make something look even reasonable? That happens in Hollywood, right? And no doubt that probably also happened here. But it tears at me because this show has a lot of potential. I really like it. I'm with you, Tony. I like gore. I like violence. I like horror. So like none of that stuff counts as a negative to me. That's all positive. It's just that to me, they're just so like, even like, I agree with Jay. There's immersion breaking in this season. There's things that they stumbled on, and I don't want them to, because I am interested. It is curious. The world is interesting. And I would rather not have to explain to someone, yeah, you just got to make it through the first season and then it gets better. Like, because unfortunately, too many shows kind of end up falling into that category.
Yeah, it sounds like Succession might be, well, it wasn't a struggle to get through, but and neither was this. It wasn't I enjoyed it, the path. But yeah, hopefully it can grow in like their vision, and then yeah, maybe a more evenly distributed budget for special effects and scenes like that.
Yeah, uneven. That's a really good way to describe it. Because one thing I did enjoy was the swordplay that you mentioned, Tony. In particular, the one in the last episode where the other mage, I think his name was Vilgefortz. He's sword fighting with the main Nilfgaard guy. That was really, really entertaining. But then on the other hand, a couple episodes earlier in the episode with the dragon guy, where at one point Geralt and Yennefer decide to use the power of their love and Huey Lewis and the News to repel the attackers, where they kiss and then ooh, like kind of like Three Ninjas style, the bad guys are like ooh, like pulled back. It was just like, oh, you could have done that better, like all around.
Yeah, I don't know how that worked. I kind of felt like those signs, which is what like Geralt uses, where he just like basically force pushes, or I think he's got a flame one. Like the games actually told me more about those things, but like they're like a wordless, like instantaneous cast for battle situations.
It's your B button.
And like the mages, it seems like they have to like really kind of like get things going. Maybe there's a chant, or it takes like time. It's not really still for like large scale battle. It seems like, I don't know if that's what they went for. It kind of felt like maybe she like passed her, like, because that's way stronger than any of the little force pushes he's done. Like it kind of felt like maybe she like gave him her power so that he could insta cast it, since she wouldn't be able to do it.
But did they have to kiss to do it? That was dumb.
Who else groaned when he said yin?
Oh, yeah.
But I love it every time Henry Cavill drops an F-bomb. It's just like so sweet.
Fuck.
It's like, fuck. Just like, it's the best F words in any show ever.
I'm gonna have to agree with you there. That always makes me chuckle. I think that part of it is the fact that, like, beyond the story, The Witcher is really just a monster hunter. And like anytime like something doesn't go to plan, it's just like, ah, shit, fuck.
How about the color contacts?
I thought that the Witchers had to have that, but Tony, correct me if I'm wrong here. Nobody else, none of the other Witchers have yellow eyes.
I don't. Yeah, I haven't looked. I guess I didn't pay attention close enough to it.
Yeah, I thought there was dialogue where he says something about the yellow eyes being specific to the Witchers. But yeah, you're right. And the purple eyes for Yennefer, I couldn't.
I also don't understand why the Witcher that got eaten by the Striga didn't have white hair. Like I was like, wait, I thought they were supposed to have white hair and yellow eyes. Like I thought that was like a part of the process.
I think Geralt just has white hair. I think they look mostly as they did before. They got like mutated, enhanced. Well, I guess they're mutated when they're children.
Yeah.
Because they
look mostly like they would have if they had grown up normally, but.
Because I seem to remember they kept referring to Geralt as the white-haired Witcher, kind of implying that his white hair is his signature, and it's not necessarily.
Yeah, they call him the White Wolf.
Yeah.
Okay, my bad.
I'm not sure about the eyes. I know everyone's eyes go black after they drink those
elixirs.
Decoction, yeah, the elixirs and stuff.
I thought that those were subtle homages to the game, kind of like you said, the force push that he had. The elixir, that felt like him using an item. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing against a boss, and you're like, oh shit, use a potion. I need a little boost here.
Especially in the early episodes, this show felt very video gamey. Where, especially at the beginning, it was almost like, all right, now go to the inn and talk to the barman. See if you can find information from anybody else in the bar.
Here's someone offering to do the exact opposite of what the last person just offered for you to do. So now you have a moral quandary. You have to pick one of the two.
Oh no, now the bad guys are attacking. Like, yeah.
So I guess I feel like we've said pretty much all we can say about this. Are we ready to do some ratings?
One last thing. Did you guys feel like the casting? It was almost like they were like, let's go out and get this big star, and they were like, we spent all our money on Henry Cavill. You have to get the D-lister, and they're like, oh, like Stregobor. That felt like low rent Jared Harris all the way. And Mousesack, he felt like low rent Oscar Isaac. Like it really. Did you get any feelings from that?
I don't know. I kind of like it when there's not a lot of big name actors, I guess, as long as they do a good job, which I felt like people did a good job with their roles. So
I thought Stregobor. I didn't think Stregobor was going to be past the first episode. I was telling Chris, I was like, this is anthological or some shit. We're just introducing to like questing. Never gonna see this guy again. I was really surprised when he showed back up. But like, Mousesack, I don't know. He dies, right? Like, so I could see like someone who a big star not wanting to take a role that's only got 10 scenes in the show.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's also gets back to, yeah, you're right. They ran out of money on multiple fronts, the whether it's the CG or the casting. But honestly, I thought Yennefer, I thought Ciri, I thought Trissa or Triessa or whatever her name is, the boss of Aretusa. I thought they all did a good job acting. I agree with you. Stregobor was rough. And I don't know. I thought Mousesack was fine for what he was. It wasn't impressive. I agree. I didn't really like when he died. I was just like, oh man, that sucks for him.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody who was bad at acting. I'm trying to think. I didn't like Clancy. I thought Yennefer was fine for what she was. She was standoffish, but the only thing I didn't like was the baby shit.
I also didn't really. I was never convinced by the romance between Geralt and Yennefer. How it seems like around episode 5, he's just like, I'm in love with this woman, and I'm gonna do everything I can to spend my life with her. I'm like,
I think that's just writing. Yeah. I think that's just because of writing, though. I honestly think. I think that like what you're saying, like even like when I think about Yin, the things or for the stuff that I don't like. It's the part of her story that is unconvincing. How I don't know that she could make the I Want a Baby more convincing with the script she had, right? Because again, like Tony said, they didn't give us a reason why. They didn't give us anything to go off of, right?
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of was like in a vacuum. This is it. Now maybe that's all on the cutting floor, and that's why. But I thought that people did a good job in acting. I mean, Tony, what do you think?
Maybe I was biasing toward. I was fine with it, and like, yeah, I don't need a lot of big name. Like, I think Henry Cavill knocked it out of the park with his role. So I don't want a big actor if they're not having to do big actor things. Not that he's having to do much more than like grunt and sweet stunts and stuff and look good on camera. But I don't know. I'm fine with smaller actors.
Well, like there's a good.
The worst part about Yennefer is like you said, Jay, is like they made her like almost. Well, I think I kind of knew that her and Geralt from like just of hearing about the games were like a thing. But the problem is, like you said, Jay, is like they made her comically ugly, and you can still tell. Like, I didn't know what the actress was going to look like when she got hot. I'm like, this girl is obviously hot underneath all these prosthetics, like her hump on her back and whatever they were doing to her face. I'm like, this girl's like, you can't hide her hotness, so just like make her like what she looks like, and maybe some other like deformities, like scars or a burn or something. That I think is how they should have done it. Because I think my friend said I don't even know if that was a part of a thing, like her transformation. I don't know if she was like super ugly and deformed before that in the books or whatever, but maybe that is the case in the books. But yeah, it's just like that's the part that kind of makes you like, we're gonna get past this part, and then like
but again, that gets back to production choices, right? Like she doesn't have any choice over whether or not they put heinous prosthetics all over her face, right?
Yeah.
I thought everyone did a good enough job where I wasn't pulled out of it, but also I wasn't pulled out for other reasons. So if I was already pulled out of it because I didn't like gore or something, then I would probably very easily see other things to pull me out of it too, while I was kind of like distanced from the story. So I'm sure there is, if I went back and watched it again, moments where I'd be like, ugh.
Well, let's get some ratings in, and I'll get my negativity in out of the way. You know, like I explained, this show was never for me, and I was just never gonna like it. I think I texted the group chat from the very first scene where Geralt is fighting a demon spider. You know, that is not my bag at all. So just purely subjectively, this show's a 2. And I'll leave it at that. How about you, Tony? What balance me out here? Give me a number.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with 7.5. I think it came. I don't know. I don't have a rating before the talk, but maybe I brought it down a little bit from the talk. But yeah, I think I need a 7.5 just because I really did enjoy it. I did watch all of season 2 already. Binge that. I think it's a step up, at least in production value. And then yeah, the story is moving along. So, but just for season 1, I'll give it a 7.5.
Do you want to give an unofficial rating for season 2? No pressure.
It's a lot more. Well, season 1, all the characters have come together or whatever. So season 2, I don't know if the story is like captivating where you're like, what's going to happen? When are they going to get together? The story might be a little bit lower, but the effects and like the quality overall, I think Aaron mentioned the cinematography and stuff, is a lot better. So probably the show overall is higher, but I'd probably just keep it 7.5 unofficially for season 2 also.
Okay. How about you, Aaron?
So I feel like this show starts out like in the first few episodes a lot lower than it does in the last few. I kind of come to about a 7 as my score for season 1. I would actually say that season 2 is substantially better. I'm not done yet, but the story has, again, confusing parts to it. I guess that's just their style of doing things is kind of leaving you guessing on some things. But this time I'm curious enough that I'm like, I want you to explain this more. I want to see more of this part of the story. So it's actually hooked me to pull me in more. I I would recommend people who like, I don't know, action, adventure, to me, like, there is some violence and there is some gore in this, but like whenever I think of gore, I think of like Ash versus the Evil Dead or um Saw or something like that. Those are what I would consider like true gore because those are like gruesomely like in your face for long periods of time. These were like flashes of moments, right? The head slices off and it rolls, and those are violent for sure. But that's kind of like gore light, is how I'd see it. So to me, this is gore light. If any level of gore bothers you, you shouldn't watch it. But it don't think that this is Saw. It's not torture porn, right?
Yeah, it's not Evil Dead with like freaking like maggots and shit.
Yeah, it's nothing
Oh.
like that. And those things to me, that's what I'm saying. Like me and Tony are like, yeah, this is not that heavy comparatively to some of the stuff out there. But again, it gets back to like I can't cringe is hard for me, right? Like whenever there's cringy stuff, I just look away. So I understand the involuntary response to something that you're not a fan of on the TV. Um, But yeah, I think 7 is a fair score for this. It had a lot of potential. It could have stepped up in this first season. It didn't. It stumbled, and I think that they addressed a lot of those problems in the second season. So I would recommend watching the second season.
All right, we got a 7.5 from Tony, a 2 from me, and a 7 from Aaron. That gives us an average score of 5.5, which just an eyeball looking at the list looks like it's going to be about, uh, top of the bottom quarter.
It seems reasonable.
Yeah, it's not gonna be for everybody, especially if you share Jay's sensibilities or magic, swords, fantasy in a dark setting is not your thing. You're probably not gonna get anything from it, except for Henry Cavill sitting in a bathtub. That might be, if you're a girl, you might want to see that one, but
it's not just girls.
You're not gonna like it.
Not just girls, Tony. Some guys want to see Henry Cavill in the bathtub. So
I mean, I can get a man crush on Geralt. I'm not ashamed.
Hey, no judgment here, man. No judgment here. So I guess is it time to enter into the wheel of randomonium?
See, I was too fast in the last one, so I was like, maybe I shouldn't go too quickly, but I mess up the timing every time.
Everyone can see this. I can't tell. It says there's a red line around my box.
It is black for now, but I think there's usually a delay.
Okay, I think you're right.
It's up for me now.
Jay, do you have visual?
I have visual. Spin. Oh wait, we haven't.
Well, first of all, let's do our offering. So each of us will. I'll throw mine down first. So this time, I will be offering up the first 2 seasons of Letterkenny. Full disclosure, I have seen this show. It's one of my personal favorites. I'm kind of like how I've said before. First season, a little rough. Doesn't know what they're doing yet. About the last 2 episodes of the first season, they figure it out, and the second season is a work of comedic gold. So that's why I think that both seasons are necessary to really evaluate the show. And I would specifically request everyone to pay specific attention to the second season opener if this gets selected, because it's one of the best sequences in the show. But that it's I've used this way to describe it many times. It's essentially like if Aaron Sorkin wrote the Trailer Park Boys. So little white trashy, but a little bit of Aaron Sorkin West Coast speed cocaine writing. So we'll see. I guess.
All right. Well, I have put forward the 2013 MTV show Zach Stone is Gonna Be Famous. This was Bo Burnham's TV show, I think, like after he had made it big on YouTube, but before he'd made it big with his comedy specials. It's a hilarious show that I think a lot more people need to see, especially with how big Bo Burnham's gotten now. So I got my fingers crossed for that.
All right, looking forward to it. Mine is, as per usual, I didn't do a lot of research on the plot, but I chose Hawkeye, be on Disney Plus. I'm sure most people have seen Marvel movies. It's a character from Marvel. guess when we last saw him was in game, and he like had that rough patch of being, I forget what it's like a side character's name. He like went on a murder spree of criminals after everyone got Thanos snapped out of existence. I think this show is going to be kind of like some fallout for that. Seems also to be kind of a Christmas theme. Maybe he's trying to get home to his family who should have been snapped back into existence because they were snapped out of existence earlier. And then Haley Steinfeld looks like she's going to be in a protege role. So looks like a good time. I've had multiple people tell me it's really good. So if that gets selected, I think we'll at least be entertained, hopefully.
All right. Let us shuffle and spin to win.
Spin that wheel. For those of you not on YouTube, we're spinning, and it's going to be close.
Oh, you just got it.
Oh, I have just edged out Tony for Zach Stone is gonna be famous. Very excited about this, guys. It originally aired on MTV, and it is currently available on Netflix.
We may have to do a video podcast for the next one because I definitely have a happy birthday Zach Stone t-shirt for my brother-in-law's like 30th birthday.
Amazing. All right, well, thank you for joining me today, gentlemen. I'm very much looking forward to our next episode where we will be reviewing Zach Stone is Gonna Be Famous. Big thank you to my co-hosts, Tony and Aaron. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you to the callers on the line. Sorry we didn't get to. Maybe next time. Big thanks to our executive producer, Dick Wolf, and we will be seeing you guys next time.
Dun, 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 dun.